Should we start? Okay, 19th February 2022. Okay, important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Okay, first of all, we will have the overview of important articles from newspaper itself, and then we will discuss in detail the important articles. So you can see the first page, India UAE sign major trade pact. So yesterday itself we were talking about the virtual summit that was going to happen between Indian and UAE leaders, and it has resulted into this free trade agreement or comprehensive economic partnership agreement, CEPA. Okay, so we will talk about the details of this. Yesterday we discussed in detail the bilateral relations, so that part we will not go into details. Okay, yesterday there was editorial also. Fine, so there we discuss in detail, just we will have follow up here on this trade pact. Okay, now there is one, let's say, judicial verdict, 38 awarded death penalty in Ahmedabad serial blast case. So it is older case, we can say 2008 case, but it is not relevant to our examination directly. Okay, so prelims or mains examination, so we will not go into details of this article. Now, moving on. Okay, so on page number 5, bottom side, great backyard bird count begins in Mysuru. So you can see that in recent times there has been many such bird counts in Karnataka. Okay, so they are in isolated manner, also not sponsored by the government, but independently by some of the non-profit organizations. Bird watchers, they are actually doing this, but ultimately it will contribute towards the conservation. ठीक है, तो आपको simply पता होना चाहिए, this is talking about, let's say, Kukarahalli Lake of that region, Mysuru region. They are talking about as many as 62 species of birds were found in that region. Okay, so if the article mentions about important bird area, then that becomes relevant to our prelims examination. Okay, but this article is not mentioning such thing here, so that's why we will not go into details. Another article, tiger cub rescued from Kerala coffee plantation. Now this article mentions about Wayanad sanctuary. It is located in Kerala, Wayanad sanctuary. Also you should be knowing that Wayanad wildlife sanctuary is part of Nilgiri biosphere reserve. So Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve is the complex which involves the protected areas of 3 states. Karnataka also, Nagar, Bandipur National Parks are there, tiger reserves. Along with that, Kerala, Wayanad Sanctuary and Silent Valley National Park. And we can say in Tamil Nadu also, Mukurthi National Park is located. So all these together form this Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. There was one question in prelims examination, if you remember, which of the let's say following protected areas are included in Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve? Such kind of question was there in prelims. Okay, so remember the names of these protected areas within the Biosphere Reserve, especially those belonging to southern states and northeastern states. ठीक है, वो हमारे प्रीलिम्स के लिए एग्जाम के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ठीक है, ओके. नाउ ऑन page number 6, editorial page, the important articles, lead article written by Shashi Tharoor, and here he is talking about need of having the asylum or refugee law in the country. So recently he introduced the private members bill about this refugee law in the parliament. Okay, so that is the context, and he is talking in the initial part of the article the details of his own bill. And then he is discussing the historical perspective that how India has been the home or receiving country for many such asylum seekers and refugees, starting from Jewish or the Jew people, then Zoroastrians, and then many other, we can say, refugees entered into India, stayed in India. Okay, so despite of such rich history, we do not have at present dedicated refugee law or asylum law in the country. So he is talking about that need of it. Okay, we will discuss this. On left hand side, foreign quarter. Now this context of this article, yesterday we were talking about the Singaporean Prime Minister Lee. he was speaking in the Parliament of Singapore, and in his speech there was some kind of, we can say, critical comment about the criminalization of politics in India. So he mentioned some fact like half of the MPs in the Indian Parliament are having the criminal cases against them. Okay, and this was not liked by Indian government, and immediately Indian government summoned the Singaporean diplomat, ambassador. So the context is this one, and the kind of zero tolerance that present government is showing towards such kind of comments by the external foreign countries in the internal matters of the country. Okay, so this zero tolerance, we have to analyze this, we can say, approach of the present government. Okay, so from IR section we will discuss this article. Okay, so other things are fine. The bottom side you can see wrong solution. So this article is having the context of Haryana government's local, we can say, reservation to the locals, that Haryana government law, 75% reservation. So we have discussed this issue in detail earlier. Recently, the Supreme Court has set aside the, we can say, staying of that law, right? So that's why again it is in news. Fine. So we will not discuss this in detail because recently itself we have discussed in detail about that article. Okay. See, on every Saturday on page number 7 there is ground zero, right? So such kind of articles, they may not be directly relevant to our examination, but try to understand, to know in detail about any important national or regional issue that is going on in the country. Such kind of articles are very important. ठीक है, तो ऐसे ही खुद से ही पढ़ लेना चाहिए. ठीक है, वो जो राइटर होता है, he is having the ground level information about that issue. He is talking with the people, actually what happened there. Okay, everything he is talking there in that article. So what you can do is, you yourself try to read such kind of article. तो हर एक वीक में सैटरडे को जो उस वीक का इंपॉर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट होता है, नेशनली, सोशली इंपॉर्टेंट, इकोनॉमिकली इंपॉर्टेंट और सब पॉलिटिकली इंपॉर्टेंट इशू, they are going in detail in that article. That's why the ground zero. ठीक है, so you can take inputs for your examination if the article is relevant. Now we have discussed this hijab row that is going on in Karnataka. Okay, so it is relevant to our polity paper from the constitutional aspect. Also you should understand, you need to take input from the ethical aspects also. ठीक है, so law and religion, the relationship between law and religion. Okay, or ethics and religion, morality and religion. So we learn this in Ansari sir's classroom, ethics paper, right? Ethics जो बैच होता है, तो ये relation sir काफी detail में explain करते हैं. So you give this example. Okay, also constitutional morality, this year's question in mains examination. So this is related to constitutional morality. Yes. So now moving on page number 8 and 9, largely political news are there. Okay, so that is fine. Yesterday day before yesterday we talked about India's stand on Ukraine and Russia conflict, right? So again Russia welcomes India's stand on eastern Ukraine situation. So what was India's stand at UNSC? Yesterday we talked about this. Yes, so the solution should be through diplomatic talks. ठीक है, so Russia liked this stand. Fine. Now, Ahmedabad Mumbai bullet train is a priority, says Prime Minister while inaugurating some, we can say, railway lines in Mumbai. Okay, so in future, surely we may expect in next 2 years, there will be bullet train running from Ahmedabad to Mumbai. Okay, so that is the news from infrastructure related. Now, on page number 10, two important news. New gecko from Northeast gets army tag. Right? So, the name of the gecko is Critodactylus exercitus. Now, exercitus in Latin means army. ठीक है, तो उसका literal meaning जो है इंग्लिश में, Indian Army's bent-toed gecko. ठीक है, so it was found in one of the army headquarters in Meghalaya. ठीक है, so इसलिए उसका नाम वो आर्मी को दिया है, and also to recognize the contribution of Indian Army towards India's security we can say. ठीक है, तो just such kind of news spaces when they are in news. ठीक है, so again relevant for our prelims examination, environment section. On right hand side you can see hydrogen policy calls for more incentives. Recently the Ministry of Power had released one notification talking about the hydrogen policy. So it is related to green hydrogen. Now last year in union budget our finance minister announced this national hydrogen mission, right? It's hydrogen energy mission. So we are now going to move forward on this mission, and the government is announcing certain measures to promote this production of green hydrogen. This is cleaner fuel being called as the future of we can say energy. ठीक है, तो ये green hydrogen होता क्या है? Then other types of hydrogen like grey hydrogen, black hydrogen, how this green hydrogen is produced. So we will take input for prelims examination, environment and science and technology perspective. Fine, okay. So from world page, the other developments, regular developments that are going on, and Ukraine Russia conflict that is going on daily, this news is coming on the part. So fine, we'll discuss these articles now in detail. Yes, India needs a refugee and asylum law. Very good article, and this issue has been in news for quite a time, especially from CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act, right? So since 2019 the protest, and then after that also recently, why it was in news? Recently it was in news, refugee wala jo issue hai. Rohingyas, yes, from long time, but last 6 months.
Afghanistan.
Yes. So Afghanistan, especially the students from Afghanistan who are studying in India. So the visa was cancelled, and the Indian government asked them to renew the visa immediately, right? So that made them stand, we can say they kept stranded in India. So the most recent issue we can say, and Rohingyas and the older issues, we will discuss that part also. Let's understand what is going on. So government has expelled the Myanmar 2 batches of Rohingya refugees. So this is being criticized, first thing, on 2 fronts. First thing is that those Rohingyas who were, we can say, expelled, they were, so on the basis of religion, to some extent the discrimination is being done. Second thing is that the we can say violation of principle of non-refoulement. This is very important principle followed in international law related to refugees. The principle of non-refoulement suggests that any person should not be forced to send back to his own country where he faces the threat of persecution, threat of life. Okay, so this is very important principle, and this is included in the International Refugee Convention of 1951 and the Protocol of 1967. But India is not signatory to both. ठीक है? So this principle is violated because we know that Rohingyas are facing some kind of threat to their life in their own country, but still we repatriated them, and also selectively because of religion aspect. First thing. Then in past also the government had tried to repatriate Chakmas, which are located at present in Arunachal Pradesh. Now Chakmas and Hajongs, they entered India from which country? Very good. Bangladesh or erstwhile East Pakistan during 1960s. Okay, what were the reasons? Very good. So yes, there was building of a dam as well as the religious persecution. Okay, so they were facing religious persecution also. So Chakmas who are Buddhist and Hajongs who are Hindus. Okay, so they faced the persecution there, and now they are, we can say, located in Arunachal Pradesh. In 1990s, Indian government tried to repatriate them, but Supreme Court intervened at that time. Okay. And also the Myanmaris in Mizoram, they are also facing the same problem. Recently, what happened is there was military coup last year in Myanmar, and many Myanmaris entered into Indian side. Many Myanmaris entered into Indian side in Manipur and Mizoram region. So the government was thinking to repatriate them back. ठीक है, तो ये issue भी news में था, and the most recent is Afghanistan. So we know that the Taliban has taken the control in Afghanistan, and after that, let's say many developments happened. Indian embassy was called back to India from Afghanistan. There is no presence, diplomatic presence, and those we can say people, Afghani national in India, including the students, they were facing many problems. ठीक है. So yes, India is neither the signatory to 1951 UN Convention or Refugee Convention, nor does it have domestic asylum framework. Let me tell you that at present, what is the situation about the legal or laws? There are many such laws which deals with asylum seekers or refugees. For example, Foreigners Act 1946. This is the major act we can say at present because of this NRC activity in Assam. This was in news. This provides for foreigners tribunals. ठीक है, तो वो जो citizenship वाला जो concept है. Then Citizenship Act. Citizenship Act of 1955. Right? Along with that, many other such acts are there, like Passports Act is there. So together they deal with these foreigners, or simply we can say that they together call the foreigners as aliens. And there is no distinction between the refugees and migrants. There is no clear definition of who should be classified as refugee. Okay, and this creates problem. Okay, and at present what we are doing here is government is dealing with these refugees on case by case basis. Okay, so any person who apply for the asylum, then that case by case basis the government decides on whether to give asylum or not. So there is no framework, a broader framework to deal with all cases. Okay, so this is the problem. Now we know that we have the historical record, or we can say the positive record of asylum, starting from, we can say, Jew people in the past. We can give the example of Zoroastrians or Persians, especially in Mumbai they are located, है ना. तो जो ब्रिटिश टाइम पे बहुत सारे जो कैपिटलिस्ट जो थे मुंबई में, जो टेक्सटाइल मिल्स इन्होंने शुरू की थी, है ना. So these are the Persians, and they are wealthy people, we can say at present, but minority. Then yes, Tibetans, especially after 1962 conflict between India China that was going on. Then we can say most recent ones, you can give the example of Rohingyas, then Tamil Sri Lankans. You can give the example of Nepalis, Bangladeshis. Okay. And if we talk about the CA, the Citizenship Amendment Act, of course Afghanistan will come into picture here. ठीक है. So we have this rich history of asylum. The government has given the asylum to all these people without any, we can say, friction, but in recent times it is creating problem. ठीक है, आपको ये पता होना चाहिए. अब तक प्रॉब्लम नहीं हो रहा था, but recent times selective repatriation on the basis of religion, and citizenship is being, we can say, expedited on the basis of religion and certain countries. ठीक है, तो जो अमेंडमेंट एक्ट जो है 2019 का, इस वजह से काफ़ी इश्यूज हो रहे हैं. देन we need a proper framework to make sure that refugees can access basic public services and be able to legally seek jobs and livelihood opportunities for some source of income. पहले तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि कौन से फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो है वो दोनों सिटीजन्स एंड फॉरेनर्स को अप्लाई होते हैं. सो कैन यू गिव एग्जांपल्स? Article 19 is applied to foreigners? No, right? Yes. 20, 21, 14 बेसिक जो हम राइट्स बोलते हैं, राइट टू इक्वालिटी और राइट टू पर्सनल लिबर्टी, राइट टू लाइफ एंड पर्सनल लिबर्टी. So these rights are available to both Indians as well as foreigners. Also freedom of religion, okay, that is also available to the foreigners. ठीक है. So this is how the basis is there in Indian Constitution, and Supreme Court has invoked these provisions when Indian government tried to repatriate these Chakmas in 1995. Okay, so there is very famous case, and that case was used by the Supreme Court to we can say protect these refugees, Chakmas and Hajongs. Okay, second thing we should understand that there is universal declaration of human rights. ठीक है, and in that the important basic human rights are mentioned. Even though person can be of, we can say, foreign citizen, foreign national, but that person inherently is having certain human rights and they needs to be protected, like right to life and dignity, right to dignified life. It is very important. We can say right to livelihood, this thing. Okay, or basic services like drinking water, safe drinking water, shelter, ये सारी चीजें उनको भी मिलनी चाहिए. And the present government is following this policy. After Supreme Court directions, Indian government provides for these Rohingyas also separate card is given. Okay, identification card is given. They are allowed to apply for the jobs. Especially they are doing job in unorganized sector, of course. But yes, they are allowed to do the job. They are allowed to have the we can say shelter in the country. Although there can be restriction on their movements. Okay, but these things are allowed. But there is no proper framework for this also. When there is national law or legal framework, then only we can say that they are safe in the country. Otherwise, government arbitrarily can repatriate them. ठीक है, तो ये कंसर्न हमें बोलना है वहां पर. बट गवर्नमेंट के साइड में क्या आर्ग्यूमेंट्स होने चाहिए कि व्हाई गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट फॉर लेट्स से फ्रेमिंग दिस लॉ. हाँ, पहली बात तो हमें पता है कि देयर इज ऑलवेज कंसर्न रिलेटेड टू इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी. यू कैन गिव द एग्जांपल हियर लाइक द गया बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट दैट हैज हैपेंड एंड the we can say responsibility of that bomb blast that happened in 2013 or 14, that was taken by the Rohingyas extremist groups, and then the concern related to national security was at forefront. ये जो है, ठीक है, आप एग्जाम्पल दे सकते हैं. सेकेंड थिंग वी शुड से टॉक अबाउट दैट. Of course, the resources are restricted. And this is burden on national resources, although it is weak argument. But we can give in favor of government here. The third thing is that even though we are following case by case basis, but we are not, we can say, violating this principle of non-refoulement frequently. एक हाथ केस वो जो हम बोल सकते रोहिंग्यास का, बट पास्ट में हमने ऐसा कुछ किया नहीं है गवर्नमेंट ने. Right, so we can say that the government is following these principles even though it has not signed that convention. ठीक है, so you can give these examples, but you should understand that India is one of the very few countries in the world who have not signed this convention. And looking at the democratic and historical credential of country, India should sign that. ठीक है, तो ये आर्गुमेंट्स आप एंड में लिख सकते हैं कंक्लूजन में. ठीक है, हमारे ट्रेडिशनल एथोस के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं आप कि वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, अतिथि देवो भव. सो इफ दीज आर आवर ट्रेडिशनल एथोस, देन ऑफ कोर्स इंडिया शुड हैव सच पॉलिसी. ठीक है, यस. इफ यू हैव क्वेश्चन इन द एंड ऑफ द आर्टिकल, यू कैन asked that question. Okay. Yes, the next article is related to this foreign quarter, the editorial on page number 6. Context here, Ministry of External Affairs summoned the Singapore High Commissioner. After the Prime Minister, Singapore Prime Minister Lee had some kind of comments on Indian parliamentarians. What were they? So he had said there has been the decline in political probity in India after Prime Minister Nehru's tenure. ठीक है. Okay, so this is the context. Let's understand here that there are some many recent times there are some cases where India has shown zero tolerance towards any criticism of India or internal matters. You can give the example. हाँ, अभी जो हिजाब वाला जो केस है वो एक आप दे सकते हैं. ये जो अभी जो पाकिस्तान में जो ऑटोमोटिव्स जो है, हाँ, यस, Hyundai और किया मोटर्स ऑफ साउथ कोरिया, ठीक है, तो उसके ऊपर जो साउथ कोरियन एम्बेसडर थे उनको समन किया गया था. रीसेंट एग्जांपल देने आंसर में, ठीक है, जो भी देने हैं. नहीं तो कुछ स्टूडेंट्स क्या लिखेंगे, वो रिहाना का एग्जांपल देंगे फार्मर प्रोटेस्ट का, 2 साल हो गए उसको अभी, बट ठीक है, बट रिसेंट एग्जांपल देना है अभी जो हुआ है. Okay, so it shows that there is zero tolerance towards any kind of criticism on the internal matters of the country. Okay, so let's understand the case of Singapore Prime Minister now in detail. So what has happened there in that speech? First thing you should understand that the speech was related to the privilege motion against one of the minister in the parliament, Singapore parliament. Privilege motion was going. And Prime Minister was commenting on that. Okay, so why privilege motion? Because the wrong facts were mentioned by the minister there. So he was worried that Singaporean parliamentarians will be like Indian parliamentarians. Okay, so he was talking about, let's say, protecting the democracy in the Singapore. But we should also understand that it was taken out of context. ठीक है, ये जो criticism जो है, it was taken out of context. Because he has given some caveats while giving this statement. First, he said that there can be political vendetta, motives or vendetta behind such kind of number of criminal cases. He mentioned that. Second thing is that he has mentioned the truth. So why are you worried about the truth? Already it is established fact. ADR fact 43% in Lok Sabha 2019 they are having the. अब ये हम इंडिया में मानते हैं तो फॉरेनर बोल रहा है तो क्यों नहीं मान रहे? Okay, this is intolerance. This is, we can say, the caveat given. Third thing is that he did not talk only about India, but he talked about the condition in Israel also, UK also, Partygate scandal in UK. So these two countries up till now have not taken any action about this speech. Why India is taking that action? ठीक है, तो ये आर्गुमेंट्स आपको पता होने चाहिए कि कैसे इंटॉलरेंस दिखाई दे रहा है. ये आउट ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट सिचुएशन लेके इसको मतलब समन किया जा रहा है जो फॉरेन एम्बेसीज होते हैं या एम्बेसडर्स होते हैं. बट वी शुड ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड इन एनालिसिस दैट सच काइंड ऑफ स्टेटमेंट्स आर अनकॉल्ड फॉर, especially when Singapore and India shares good bond, good bilateral relations, है ना. आप एग्जाम्पल दे सकते हैं कि जैसे ड्यूरिंग पैंडेमिक टाइम सिंगापुर हेल्प्ड अस. सेकेंड वेव में क्या हुआ था? सिंगापुर हैड सेंट इट्स ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर्स, ठीक है, वहाँ का एरोप्लेन उन्होंने भेजा था डायरेक्टली हमारे यहाँ पे इमरजेंसी में, जो ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर्स के लिए, जो ऑक्सीजन प्लांट्स होते हैं उसके लिए, ठीक है. तो इमरजेंसी में उन्होंने हमें हेल्प किया. एंड इन पास्ट ऑल्सो वी हैव द हिस्ट्री, नो, ठीक है, INA वाला हिस्ट्री है बिफोर इंडिपेंडेंस इटसेल्फ. ओके, सो वी हैव गुड रिलेशंस. सो व्हाई सच कमेंट्स इवन दो वी कैन से दैट इज ट्रूथ, ठीक है. सेकंड थिंग इज दैट, सॉरी, हाँ नहीं वो ठीक है, वो प्रिपेयर्ड स्पीच है, सारी चीजें उन्होंने बोली है, बट इट वॉज वी कैन से स्मॉल mention in that large speech, and in that small mention also simply we should understand that he had praised India. ठीक है, ये देखा नहीं है उन्होंने, बट प्रेज कहां पे किया है? ही फ्रीडम फाइटर्स, ओके, एंड देन नेहरू, ओके, सो ही प्रेज नेहरू ऑल्सो, बट आफ्टर दैट ही सेड दैट देयर इज डिक्लाइन. तो गुस्सा आएगा ना गवर्नमेंट को, ठीक है, इसलिए सब हो रहा है बेसिकली. अगर वो प्रेज करते कि नहीं अभी अच्छा है प्रेजेंट गवर्नमेंट, तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं होता. Okay, so these are the issues, simply we can say that, and of course it is not going to make significant impact on the bilateral relations. ठीक है, छोटा सा हम बोलते हैं प्रॉब्लम है, but it will be solved. But in way forward, what we can show that or say that instead of doing such kind of, you can say that we are a democratic country, and वो कमेंट भी नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है. So in the end you can say that our actions should speak for our credentials, and we should not be insecure about our democratic credentials. ठीक है, insecure नहीं होना चाहिए, otherwise such actions will take. Fine. So this is from IR section. Then India UAE signed major trade pact. Okay, so CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. This is signed between India and UAE. So it is going to help increase the trade, investment, connectivity with UAE as well as overall West Asia or Middle East nations. ठीक है, so simply we should understand UAE is the gateway to the Middle East and West Asia overall region. Along with that, recently we are increasing our connectivity and trade relations with a grouping of 4 countries in that region. So India, US, Israel and UAE. After that, Abraham Accords, Israel and UAE, Abraham Accords happened. After that, the 4 countries are preparing for connectivity cord. ठीक है, तो this is going to be important development. Also, UAE is interested in investment in Jammu and Kashmir. ठीक है, yesterday we talked about this. So it is welcomed by the Indian government. And yesterday we also said or talked about some facts. Okay, what were those facts? At present the trade is around 60 billion dollars. ठीक है, and we want to increase this to $100 billion next 5 years. Okay, investment of UAE in India, 9th largest investor. UAE's exports, 3rd largest exports goes to UAE from India. ठीक है, तो ये सारे फैक्ट्स आप आंसर में लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है, सी इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ डेटा, फैक्ट्स, एग्जांपल्स इज वेरी वी कैन से इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर आवर मेंस एग्जामिनेशन. ठीक है, सो व्हेनेवर वी एक्सप्लेन समथिंग, राइट आर्गुमेंट्स, इफ यू गिव सच डेटा इन सपोर्ट ऑफ दैट वैलिडेट आवर आर्गुमेंट. ओके, सो दैट्स व्हाई अगेन अपडेटेड फैक्ट्स, ऑलवेज एम्फसाइज ऑन दिस. ठीक है, सो यस, next 5 years it will increase from 60 billion to 100 billion. This is the target that we are having. Now during this meeting there was also signing off, during this virtual summit, memorandum of understanding was signed between the International Financial Services Center Authority, GIFT City and Abu Dhabi Global Market Financial Services Regulatory Authority. Okay, this is for financial market, investment in the financial market. Then another MOU covered building of food corridors. See, these 2 areas, first financial technology or financial services, this has been the new area where India is cooperating more with UAE. Okay, and second is agriculture products. We know that India's exports to Middle East or this UAE also, this is the major part of our exports. ठीक है, तो फूड कॉरिडोर हम तैयार करना चाहते हैं दोनों कंट्री में. ओके, सो दिस इज द MOU. आउटकम ऑफ द समिट यू शुड बी अवेयर. ठीक है, सेपा एंड दीज 2 MOUs. ओके, न्यू गेको फ्रॉम नॉर्थ ईस्ट गेट्स आर्मी टैग. ओके, सो इट वॉज फाउंड इन आर्मी हेड मिलिट्री स्टेशन इन मेघालय. That's why the name is given Indian Army's bent-toed gecko. Now it is one of the variety of species of geckos. Geckos जो होता है पता है ना gecko? हाँ, type of lizard we can say. Okay, so bent-toed gecko is a group of family we can say of these geckos, and the name is given here Critodactylus exercitus. In Latin this means army, that's why the name. Along with that, India is now home to 40 species of bent-toed gecko, with northeast accounting for 16 of them. ठीक है, so this information is sufficient for prelims examination. Hydrogen policy calls for more incentives. Okay, so the experts in that field, private sector, basically they are saying that more incentives are required in that hydrogen field. So the green hydrogen policy announced by the government on 17th February incentivizes producers of this form of power, but only partially, says experts. Okay, the article is not providing that much details about the policies. The center has set itself a target of setting up 5 million tons green hydrogen production by 2030. This fact is important. Along with that, National Hydrogen Energy Mission announced in 2021 Union Budget. Okay, now hydrogen only emits water as residue when burnt. That's why it is pitched as potential substitute for fossil fuels. Now how it is significant? It is significant to achieve our commitment towards Paris Agreement, iron disease. Okay, we want to substitute fossil fuels with renewable sources of energy, and this is vast reserve in the country. ठीक है, तो अब ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन के बारे में बोलते हैं कि कैसे तैयार होता है. सो हाइड्रोजन और अमोनिया. ओके, सो अमोनिया, फ्रॉम अमोनिया also the hydrogen is produced. It is produced mostly by steam reformation with natural gas and sometimes by electrolysis. These are the methods, which is splitting water with electricity yielding hydrogen and oxygen. So we have learned in chemistry up to 10th standard electrolysis process. Use of electricity for splitting the elements of the compound, electrolysis. Okay, so here we are splitting water into its elements, hydrogen and oxygen, and then hydrogen is used. Okay, so this process, the supply of electricity, this electricity, from which source it's come from? It comes from green sources. Okay, renewable energy sources. That's why the green hydrogen, the name given. Okay, so the types: green hydrogen produced from renewable sources of energy, and it gives only the byproduct as water and water vapor. So of course it is having two benefits. One, fossil fuels, they are conserved of course, and they are limited. ठीक है, तो एक बेनिफिट है. दूसरा बेनिफिट क्या है कि पोल्यूटेंट्स, आफ्टर दे आर बर्निंग द पोल्यूटेंट्स, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग और एयर पोल्यूशन, दैट इज रिड्यूस्ड. देन ब्लू हाइड्रोजन. ओके, सो इट इज सोर्स फ्रॉम फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, बट द इमिशंस or the byproducts such as carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide are stored. It is better than the grey hydrogen. So emissions are stored somewhere. It can be in geological forms, or the carbon capture phenomenon can be used here, or simply we can say that geosequestration or carbon sequestration method can be used here. Grey hydrogen, it is worst of all three we can say. India's bulk comes from this fossil fuels at present, and it is type of hydrogen, this is called grey hydrogen. ठीक है, तो फॉसिल फ्यूल्स से जो हाइड्रोजन क्रिएट किया जाएगा, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जो सोर्स होगी, so that will be grey hydrogen, and it is having the byproducts of pollutants, CO2, carbon monoxide, or agar if it is coal burning, it is resulting into SO2, NOx emissions, everything. ठीक है, तो it is harmful, and this is not emphasized. Which one is emphasized? ठीक है, तो in prelims there can be question on this. Yes, so जिसको नहीं पता है तो वो कैसे ऑप्शन में कंफ्यूज हो सकता है? हाँ, यूपीएससी कंफ्यूज इज लाइक दिस. जो नए स्टूडेंट्स आते हैं ना, जो अभी अभी प्रीलिम्स पढ़ रहे हैं समझो, ठीक है, उनको पता ही नहीं है, क्योंकि वो 2 साल पहले न्यूज में था, नेशनल हाइड्रोजन मिशन जो है. ठीक है. सो दैट्स व्हाई वी आर सेइंग कि आपको बेसिक नॉलेज हर चीज का चाहिए. ठीक है, डिटेल में इतना नहीं जाना है, बट एटलीस्ट फॉर प्रीलिम्स एग्जामिनेशन यू शुड कवर द वास्ट एरियाज बट टच एवरीथिंग. ठीक है, तो व्हाट इज द आंसर हियर? Renewable sources of energy. This is the answer. Fine. Okay. So these are the important articles. Any question from your side? Yes, A is the answer. Okay. So should we stop? Okay. Fine. Thank you.
We are staying in the same building.
Okay.